Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. Seeking the truth, exposing the lies. Remember, together, we are unstoppable. Keep on digging.
Reporter Aaron Matei, he won an award for debunking the whole Russiagate thing. Do you know the whole story behind that?
No, I don't.
So Russiagate was started by the Clintons. They hired an ex-MI6, basically the equivalent of the UK's equivalent of the CIA. So they hired an ex-MI6 guy who's now a private investigator to go dig up dirt on Trump in Russia. And he wrote what's called the Steele dossier. And that's the background of that whole BS. That's the foundation of it all. So once you realize who he is and that he was paid to go dig up dirt, and you know it's a political hit piece, it loses all credibility.
Right.
But people still talk about that bullshit.
What's going on, Adorable?
What's up? I just came in to control the agenda.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, I'm sorry. Control the narrative.
Same difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
You fuckers are always trying to silence us.
So to be clear, Rose, I'm not a fucker because I'm the one getting fucked.
You know, somebody's
That would
getting
be
fucked on.
That would be a fucky, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. You
I'm-
fuckers.
Both by men and Democrat. Either way, I'm fucked.
Well, we're all getting fucked by Democrats, but Republicans too, though. It's not as hard right now.
I don't disagree. In fact, I go like every week. I go through like this midlife crisis politically, where I literally look at myself and go, "How the fuck can I still be Republican?" Just because some of the shit goes on, especially in Texas. But then I hear a Democrat speak, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's exactly why." So I'm like politically confused. I'm like,
Come to the third parties.
Yeah.
Well, no, like I want to win. If I ever run for office, I want to win. I know that sounds so bad.
Did you know? Did you know that the People's Party made it on the ballot in 15 different states, and they're actually taking nominations, and you don't even have to have political
you can get on
experience.
the ballot. You can get on the ballot. Kanye West was on the ballot for president. Getting on the ballot and actually getting elected are two fundamentally different things.
Yeah, but Adorable, things are changing. Like people are open for it now, and honestly, I think we're going to see a mass migration away from these parties.
I think so too. I mean, Trump basically had to offer a lot of the same things as Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is because I get into debates with the far right who tends to be Trump supporters, and like it's so frustrating because they don't understand. Like, number one, Trump's not a conservative; he's a populist. But if you really break down what he wanted, it really isn't fundamentally different than the idea of democratic social. Like when I say I don't have a problem with universal health care, and they like shit a brick and go like, "Oh my God, you're a rhino." I'm like, no, I'm a fiscal conservative. Why would I be opposed to a national health care system that covers more people and costs? Is that not what we're supposed to stand for as conservatives?
Thank you. It costs less.
They would call you a cuck.
Yeah, they probably would, and then I'd be like, "You forgot the top. It's a cock."
So, what makes you physically conservative? Like, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means that we're focused on the most efficient way to get the best outcome. So, like universal health care, right? Right now, the United States spends roughly 18% of GDP on the socialized medicine that we do have, which is Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA. But yet, we still have the highest infant mortality rate and lowest life expectancy of any industrialized nation. But if you look at our counterparts, particularly those with socialized medicine, they're spending 13 to 15% of GDP. So we could spend 13 to 15% of GDP, cover every American, and hopefully have better outcomes. So to me, being a fiscal conservative means we're going to spend less money, but we're also going to have better outcomes, because spending less money, like in their mind, social programs, so let's just cut food stamps. Well, that may save money, but it's not a better outcome. People aren't going to suddenly get healthier and have better access to food options, etc. So I think both of those things need to happen to be a true fiscal conservative. Less spending with better outcomes.
That's a great point. And I just want to interject. If we cut food stamps without having universal health care, then we're creating a nightmare down the road. All these people are going to have to go to emergency rooms, right?
Right. Well, that's why I'm in favor. And here's where they also shit a brick. I have no problem with universal basic income. I say we eliminate socialized spending by giving everybody an allowance, and you decide what you want to do with it. If you're fortunate enough to be blessed financially, great. You put it in the stock market and you create generational wealth. If you're not financially blessed, great. Here's $1,000 a month to do with what you need. If you look at our socialized system in America and the amount that goes to administrative services and salaries just to administer these programs, we're talking about billions of dollars that we can cut out and just put back into people's pockets.
Well, I mean, I would ask you though, at that point, then that means we're cutting jobs, right? And then, so what do those people do? And then also that $1,000 isn't going to be enough for those people to get by. It's actually less than what they're getting in like food stamps and all the other things.
So but they would still get their subsidies. They would still get their subsidies with $1,000.
Well, not with.
What's up, Cannon?
Yes.
I heard a voice and I'm like, who's that? I don't know.
Adversaries.
Yes, they brought up the liberal sort of punching bag. And I will gladly play that.
What?
So yeah.
Well, check this out. I just watched a program recently about the new largest financial scandal in American history. Previously, it was the savings and loan scandal, but the new one, to the tune of $120 billion, was the pandemic unemployment assistance. And the reason is because fraud was rampant. 55,000 California prisoners were getting paid while in jail. Are you kidding me? And B of A opted to not put a security chip in the debit card. So there was rampant cases of people like vacant houses. A realtor called the IRS like, hey, there's 12 envelopes here for different people. And then all of a sudden the window was broken and all 12 of those envelopes were stolen. And because it was a non-traceable, no-chipped card, you could just go to 25 different ATMs and cash it. It's insane.
Yeah, and the problem with California was, there was some clear missteps. Like, unlike states like Nevada and Arizona, California's criminal justice system and what they claimed was prisoner safety refused to allow the EDD access to the social security numbers of prisoners to cross-reference the claims. That's what they did in Arizona and Nevada, and they were able to eliminate that. And so, when that issue was first presented, they could have had a stopgap in place, but basically they had to go to court. And so to me, it's like there was fraud, but it was totally manageable. And it was just an example of bureaucratic missteps. And Gavin Newsom, I'm not going to criticize him just because I'm a Republican, but at some point you have to take accountability as the governor and say, we fucked up. But yet he constantly tries to justify it.
Yeah, the state auditor warned him 3 times, I think it was. Once in 2018, before the pandemic even, saying that the Employment Development Department is ripe for corruption because it's antiquated, it doesn't have up-to-date equipment, it's understaffed, and if anything happens, it's going to be completely overloaded. And guess what? That happened. But the main thing is, I think B of A went in with the intent of fraud committed. But from their end, they don't care. As long as that money gets spent, they get paid, right? So they don't care who's spending it. They wanted all those payments to be spent, right?
Yes, but in the same sense, I mean, like we know the fraud that's happened within the medical sort of like aspect down in Florida. You know what I mean? And then we know the kickbacks that happen to either be lobbyists, state lobbyists, or what have you. So why is like even like former former governor himself, Rick Scott, when he was there, he didn't let a lot of that stuff go the way that like DeSantis has let go through. And now that he's the senator, he knows where he can't go too deep in DeSantis is sort of like what his protection is and not put any mud on him. So he'll stay out of that. But like Florida's always been sort of messy with that. It's always been messy with that. When it came to the pill farms or it came to like, aspects of all that stuff, we know, if you have read up, we know how messy Florida has always been when it comes to the aspect of, the medical aspect of how people are gaining a lot of money over that aspect of it. So I'll say that.
Not to mention banks laundering drug money, right?
I'm just saying, it's Florida. You know what I'm saying? It's Florida. It was like, it was
baby.
the Wild West down there. It was the Wild West down
there. If I want to launder money, I just put it in my butthole and then cross the border.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
That's the poor man's laundering.
I'll say this. I honestly feel, and this is me being the total sort of liberal. I honestly feel that your party has been like usurped, not just outside like 45, but like usurped like his minions, and his minions they're going full kamikaze with the Greens and some of the like people like I hear that are like trying to like be on the ballot for this November. They're all out. They're all out to like just either push the big lie. They're there to push division. They're there to push tribalism, and they're there to look at not like, do I have a point? I just want you to feel a certain way. Yeah. That's the way they're trying to get on ballots. Not that I have actual issue. I just want you to feel a certain way. And I don't think politics works that way.
What's interesting?
Can you guys believe that? Can you guys believe that people are still saying that the election was stolen?
I can believe that they're still saying it. Absolutely, I believe that they're saying it. But to your point, Cannon, what I think is interesting is there's certainly a far-right rhetoric that attaches itself to the MAGA movement and, by extension, Donald Trump. But if you look at like presidential contenders like Ron DeSantis, the true conservatives know that Donald Trump is not far-right. And I think that's why, in the case of Ron DeSantis, we see some extreme policy like the Don't Say Gay bill, like abortion messaging, because I think what's happening is if Donald Trump runs in 2024, they're trying to position themselves as, I'm right of Donald Trump. I'm the true conservative. And so I find it fundamentally odd that the MAGA movement itself wants to pretend like Donald Trump was this extreme far-right candidate, but yet the true conservatives know, kind of like you inclined, he really wasn't a far-right conservative by any stretch of the imagination.
At all. And then the fact that, like, you have the heir apparent, you have the Nikki Haley's, you have, sadly, the Ted Cruz's, you have even, like, I'm not sure if he's the governor of Delaware or Maryland.
What's that one dude's name? Howley?
No, Hogan, because like he was like
Josh Hawley. Yeah, Josh Hawley, whatever the fuck his name.
Really? Do you think Josh Hawley could lead the GOP
No, I just
His,
I just
like,
brought him up because I just brought him up because I want to punch him in his face, but that's just me.
All right, but I'm just saying, I'm talking about the heir apparent. I'm talking about the guys and gals who have put themselves in situations that have built really good resumes and got sort of usurped when it came to the whole Trump thing. And if they are like, there's something that Bill Maher always say that's like sort of like Republican classic. You know what I mean? The when you look back at like the McCain, the Jack Kemps, all those kind of like aspects of a party that was willing to work across the aisle. We're not there anymore. We're not there anymore. We saw with with the confirmation of Judge Jackson, the nonsensical sort of aspect of like where where the GOP is going to go. And
Well,
the funniest thing
they're
about that
postured.
was the funniest thing about that was they went in there saying is like, we're not going to sit here and talk about like fear. We're not going to sit here and talk about like what you did and what you did like when you were a kid and bada 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 this bada bada that. But they had an onslaught of like saying basically she's cool with kitty porn and had let people out on those aspects. So it's like they still attack her.
Let's be clear that type of posturing happens on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, of course.
The Democrat, and it sucks because it shouldn't. Like any job interview, you stick to the credentials and their experience as it relates to the position that they're applying for. And I think, what they did with Judge Brown was absolutely horrendous. Especially when Ted Cruz started talking about sentencing and leniency, because Republicans and conservatives, if we want to talk about leniency and sentencing, then all we got to do is take a look at every single Trump administration employee that is now walking free because of leniency. So I agree with you. I think it's unfortunate, but it's a consequence. I mean, we saw it with, Brett Kavanaugh. And when Barack Obama was trying to get his final justice approved, they're going to do one thing in one side and then they're going to flip and do the other. I mean, Dave talked a little bit about election integrity. And I think what we're missing in politics on both sides is the reasonable people to stand up and not attack the other side, but their own side and say, this kind of shit needs to stop. Because, I mean, you look at election integrity. It's a fun talking point, 100%. It's fun. But at the end of the day, the only reason why anybody still talks about the election being stolen is not because they believe it was, but because that's the basis for pushing voter suppression laws. I mean, Republicans wanted to take this national battle cry for election integrity, but every single one of them sat on their ass when Brian Kemp, as Secretary of State, manipulated and abused his power as the state head of elections to rob Stacey Abrams of that election.
Yes.
But not one conservative gave a shit when he was shutting polling places, reducing the number of machines, and criminalizing people for giving voters in certain demographic areas water to stand in line for 4 hours. But all of a sudden,
are you sure
now
you're
they
a
have
Republican? I don't know if you're a Republican. Are you just like a secret agent? Are you just a secret agent?
No, he's a log cabin Republican. He has been for a good portion of.
No, he's our secret agent. I'm going with that.
Well, but
he's soon to be a congressperson for the People's Party.
There we go.
But see, that's the thing that's unfortunate is that I say things like that and people say, are you sure you're a conservative? Yes, I'm 100% for defending what is the greatest right protected by the Constitution, and that's the sanctity of voting. So the fact that I'm challenged at, I recognize what is and is not protecting the right of people to vote, the fact that that's challenged now, that's how far off the rails the Republican Party has gotten. And I've said this to a lot of my conservative colleagues that, at the end of the day, if we want to have a discussion about election integrity, then we should start looking at the fact that we are the only country on the globe that has a national election that is not federalized. The election for
Yes.
president is essentially 50 different elections going on the same day. In the state of Texas, you have to be registered at least 20 days before the election. On California, you have same day voting. In the state of Florida, your ballot has to be postmarked by a certain date. In Tennessee, they extended that so it can be postmarked after the date of the election. So when you have 50 different rules and regulations governing how we elect the same office, to me, that's a bigger election integrity issue than this made up misconception of poll workers sharpieing in Joe Biden's name and droves of ballots being destroyed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just want to bring up one thing real quick. So, when the cry of election fraud came out, I mean, I'll be the first person to say we do not have legitimate elections, but it was not stolen from Trump. And there's a reporter, Greg Palast, an amazing investigative journalist who's been digging into U.S. elections for decades. And he did some great work on this with the help of a nonprofit organization. And he found, I believe it was Georgia, that took 750,000 people off of the voting rolls in Georgia illegally alone. And because of his organization, he forced these states to put those people back on after the fact, unfortunately. But so it was actually a bait and switch. This was in the congressional level.
I mean, but that's why Stacey Abrams is such she's like when she went up against Kemp. Honestly, she should have won that. She should have been the first woman of color to be the gubernatorial sort of like winner of when it came to Georgia. She should have. Just plain and simple. Either be gerrymandering or controlling the sort of ballot itself. But we know going on the other side of 2020, we know Trump's own government said it was the most it was the most clear cut sort of there was no shenanigans. There was no sort of this, that, or another. He lost, Joe won. Just plain and simple. I hate the fact that you have your Marjorie, you had your Marjorie Greens and the batshit chick in Colorado that still feel, and they do fundraising. You know what I'm saying? It's like they can get censored and they can get put where they can't vote or whatever, but they're still drumming a beat to a point to where they think they can still be get on Fox News or get on the more what's the other one? Is it Newsmax? What's the other one? What's the it's Newsmax, right? What's the other really far right sort of aspect of where they're if you watch Fox, you think it's well, Breitbart has been neutered to a certain extent, but you have them going out there and they reach out to them. You know what I mean?
CNN.
Whoa! Don't hit me with CNN.
I'm just trying to shit.
I'm just trying to ruffle.
I'm just trying to ruffle the feathers of the Democrat.
You know how to about CNN, okay? If you said MSNBC, I will give you that, but just don't throw CNN just too close into that. Just that's all.
I mean, is there such thing as an honest mainstream news station that does not report from a bias?
Nope.
NPR
or CNN.
NPR
or CIA. I mean,
the CIA news network. Well, NPR used to be great before they became the corporation for public broadcasting.
But why did they have to go through that way? Because who was taking funding from NPR and also CBS? Who wanted to take money out of that?
Yeah,
45.
The same people that now control them.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
I disagree with that.
Don't you guys all think that that presidents should get free airtime and every party should get the same amount of free airtime, and so we could level the playing field of you got to be a gazillionaire to even run?
Just watch C-SPAN. How about that? watch C-SPAN.
There you go.
I mean, if you watch C-SPAN, you hear them talk with no bias, and I'm a huge fan of C-SPAN. That's a running joke that we have on the show that I do. Like, I watch C-SPAN. You know what I mean? I watch the House. I watch the Senate. I watch whenever, outside when, like, CNN decides, like, break into Joe, trying his best to get through what he needs to do. But what I'm trying to say is, if you no, I'm not a sports guy. I like wrestling. I like MMA, and I used to be a real big fan of like boxing, but like I kind of was sort of seeing like the writing on the wall when it comes to boxing. It's a dying art, and as much as you can be a pugilist, when people put money behind you losing or winning, then if you that performer in that situation, they tell you in that room while they're taping you up, "Hey kid, have a good fight, but they got more money against you or for you, then this is where you stand." And when I found out about boxing, that's when I took my love out of boxing. What I'm trying to say is politics has always been my sport. Politics has always been something I've been very, very passionate about, either on a local level, a state level, and honestly, always on the federal level. So I take umbrance to the fact that, like, when it came, like, 2016, where people who had no idea what politics were telling me what politics were. And I'm not sure, Adorable, if you feel the same way. The fact that, like, when we knew our shit, and now we have people telling us, no, this is what's happening. And it's like, well, you went down a rabbit hole because you saw something on Facebook, and now you think you know more than I do. But I know the way things work within said, like, in the system itself. Before I go too long, guys have a lot of messages. Like some messages.
I was going to mention that. We got messages going back like over a half hour.
Yeah, go ahead and play them.
Deluxe. Coming in hot.
You talk about lack of freedom. Try to be a disabled person.
My boy.
Someone has Down syndrome or quadriplegic. Is some of the people I work with. Their lack of freedom or lack of respect is something that even is not even looked at or valued. Anyways, hey panel, not trying to be depressing. Hope this is coming.
Deluxe again.
Most of the stuff is just based on fear, and what it is the almighty dollar. And all these people, all these rich old bucks talk to each other from all these other countries. They go, okay, what fear, warmongering stuff we could present, right? And what's the best scenario to keep the populace at bay so no one actually rises up in large amounts against the system that is opposed upon us. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It's all the countries. They don't want the people to unify and start thinking freely. They want you to be docile. They want you to be on your app. They want you to just bow down to whatever they want. We're just all the pawns. You know what I mean?
And last message from Deluxe.
I was actually fortunate to go to a political science class back in my time in college, and it's just what they do to make war happen is quite interesting. And what they have done, especially with the United States, to make war happen. It's all financial gain, of course. You guys already know that. And whatever can be used, or whatever persons, the common man, such as we are, that they could push.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of And Another Thing with Dave. If you're digging what I'm doing, picking up what I'm throwing down, please do share with friends and on social media. Until next time, keep on digging for the truth.